Good morning. Happy Wednesday morning, everyone. It is August. Can you believe it's August? I mean, this year is flying. I think every year flies faster. Um, or age changes our perception, something like that. I don't know. But anyway, I hope everyone is enjoying their summer so far. I would be, but it's like 111 in Vegas, so I am hot. Summer used to be my very favorite season, and now I sort of prefer spring, which is like summer, but the kind where you can still go outside. And fall too. Fall is beautiful here. Heck, winter is also nice. But yeah, summer is our stay inside season while everyone else is out running all around the world, doing fun stuff for the summer. If we're here home in Vegas, we're indoors in vast air conditioning. So, welcome, welcome. I was out last week, so thank you for your flex. Back today and excited to answer questions. If this is your first time joining, let me give you a tiny bit of background. I've been doing this forever. I've been recruiting and hiring for over 27 years. I think we're pushing 28. I don't know. Every year, I don't really want to add that extra year to my total years of experience, but I guess I have to. So, I'm here to answer any questions. And when I say any questions, I genuinely mean any questions. Totally transparent, you know, straight no chaser. I'm going to answer it how it is, whether I like it being that way or not. I'm going to tell the truth. I believe in critical thinking. I believe in, understanding multiple perspectives about things. Um, rarely are when I talk about things, rarely is it my personal opinion. It's really based in the reality of how hiring works in various different companies. There are very few things that are standardized. There are very few things that can be said that are absolutes across all companies and industries. It simply doesn't work that way. So, my get down is to add the context and the nuance back to these conversations so that frustrated job seekers, validly frustrated job seekers, can navigate the landscape of hiring um, with some sense of understanding it, right? The rules of the game are changing, but we haven't exactly shared the rules. We don't really know what they are. To be very honest with you, recruiters and recruiting leaders are trying to figure the new game out too and how to play it because we didn't actually build our systems and processes for incredibly high volumes of applicants. Obviously, there are some roles and some companies that are doing volume hiring all the time. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what most of us out on LinkedIn here are interacting with, which is commoditized white collar laptop class jobs. Okay, that's where there's been a lot of impact. Certainly, there have been tremendous layoffs across tech, sweeping layoffs in lots of industries, mostly impacting kind of that middle sector of white collar laptop class employees. Um, so when I talk, I usually talk from that frame. If there's a particular nuance about a particular industry or particular function, I will share that. When you join, please drop something in the comments because I don't know you're here unless you share a comment. Say hi. Tell me where you're joining from. That would be great. For whatever reason, I can't see anyone who joins from YouTube or their comments, so that's interesting as well. Um, so I am going to get started with the very first question that I was actually asked in my. So I get asked questions directly a lot, right? Not everybody comes out here to this and asks questions publicly. So I'm going to share the question that was asked of me this morning because it was interesting and it's a distinction that I see gets confused and conflated a lot. Okay. So I think that there's value in me sharing this for pretty much anyone who's watching now, or even people who log on later to watch. So I'm going to make the distinction. So the question came to me like this. I'm going to paraphrase because I don't have it exactly. Actually, you know what? Let's read it. I'm not obviously going to mention any names or any people because obviously they asked privately, so I'm going to definitely keep them confidential as I always would anyone who ever asks me questions. So the question is this, or the I'm going to read the kind of context behind it. So um, hi, Lori. I shared with so and so my confusion about current headhunting processes from internal recruiters, and I hope you can provide a little clarity on the matter. I had a couple of recent experiences where I was headhunted. Then I was required to submit a cover letter and or a brief statement as to why I want to join their company. And in parentheses, it says, which I had known nothing about prior to the recruiter contact. Just to be rejected after the first interview. It feels like I entered a dance where I don't know the steps. Pitching myself for a headhunted position seems odd because I expect them to pitch the position to me. Having two salespeople selling to each other seems like the makings of an awkward situation. If you have a moment, um, maybe you could share a little more about your thoughts on this. Okay. So here's what I explained to that person that had a very valid question and a very valid confusion around why an internal recruiter that for all intents and shoot, sorry, that for all intents and purposes was, poaching them, was outreaching to them and inviting them, to the process. For all intents and purposes, why would that individual have any interest in the role? Aside from what you've shared, right? So I guess so I think that what gets conflated here, what I'm seeing conflated here, is that there is a bit of a difference between an agency recruiter headhunting, which we don't say anymore, but that's so agency recruiters are outsourcing passive candidates, and internal recruiters are also outsourcing passive candidates, but from a very different lens and a completely different incentive structure. So let me kind of break that down for you. I think this could be helpful because, again, we're all recruiters, and there are a lot of absolute statements about recruiters, but we never really differentiate between whether we're talking about agency recruiters or whether we're talking about internal corporate recruiters. Both source passive candidates, by the way. So when an agency recruiter reaches out, like they're reaching out from a different sense of urgency. Please note that a lot of agency recruiters are contingent recruiters. And what that means is they can work on a role, recruit you, put you in the interview process, do all that work. They could do that for a month or more and never ever get the placement and never get paid a dime for any of that work. Interestingly, we're one of the very last kind of industries where people are expected to provide a service kind of for free, and then they only get paid if a placement is made. Well, there's a zillion reasons a placement doesn't get made that have nothing to do with the recruiter working on it. So all that work to bring a great slate of candidates to concierge the whole process and every candidate through every step of the interview, keeping them excited, keeping them from, railing about assignments and assessments and this and that. Like, we manage all of that. And then at the end, you're like, meh, we're not going to hire for this. We changed our minds. That's what the company says. So, like, agency recruiters have a sense of urgency. They also cannot, you know, they push for you, they sell you on the opportunity. They don't ask questions like, why are you interested in this role? Because they know that you're not yet and that it's their job to get you interested. So it's a very different tone and energy when they reach out. And it's also why, if you're not well aligned and the client isn't going to entertain your background, they're quickly on to the next. Now, I will say, and here's a caveat, some nuance for you. Back in the day, we didn't just move on, right? We knew that every candidate was a potential future fill, right? So even if you weren't right for this client that I have right now, I never just ghosted and moved on as though, well, I can't get an instant transaction and instant gratification out of you, so you're nothing. That is just a horrible business model, because eventually, um, you're going to ruin your reputation, or all recruiters' reputations, in the process of acting like that. And I think we're seeing plenty of that right now. But when an internal corporate recruiter um, reaches out passively, at best, don't think of it like they're poaching or headhunting. At best, they're tapping you on the shoulder and inviting you into their application process. They're saying, we notice that you have the kind of experience we're looking for. They do this when their incoming applicant pool isn't representing what they're looking for, or they don't have enough candidates within the incoming, and we also just like a mix of passive and active job seekers to look at. Especially if a company is looking for a very specific skill, it's not that we can't get it by posting the job, it's that it's hit or miss, right? And people don't read all the details of job descriptions. They skim it for the key things, the key requirements, and then they apply. But they don't really thoroughly vet a job description either, right? If we're being honest, especially the people who are like, I'm applying to hundreds of jobs a week. Well, you're not doing a deep, evaluation of the job at that rate. So when an internal corporate recruiter reaches out in your LinkedIn box and they're like, hey, I'm recruiting for this role, here's the link to the job post, please, blah, 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 whatever. Like, we want to, this is our version, our corporate recruiters' version of headhunting or poaching people, but we can't necessarily aggressively, we can't aggressively push you forth the way an agency recruiter can outside of the company. We are a representative of the company. So, like, the idea that we can, like, have different processes, or treat people differently, or expect them to do different things based on whether we invited them to the interview process or they found the job posted out there themselves. Like, we have to be fair and have a level of continuity around what people do. There's a parity that matters, right, to being perceived as a fair hiring environment. So when you think about it, like, yeah, we're like, hey, come apply, but we're inviting you to look at it, evaluate the job description, and if you're interested, you then become an applicant, a sourced applicant, and it is differentiated within the ATS. We can see, okay, these are the people we sourced, these are the people who came in directly, and we can see directly where you came from. Okay, you applied via LinkedIn. Okay, you applied via Indeed. Oh, look, you applied via Lazy Apply. That's the case for, don't have AI applying for jobs for you while you're asleep. It's a terrible business model. It doesn't do well, and it doesn't look good to be coming from Lazy Apply. I don't want to be represented by lazy anything. Like, that word shouldn't be anywhere in my candidacy. I don't know why anyone would want that. So I get the idea of being able to apply for jobs more easily. And I think there are good tools for that, but not the ones where, they just apply on your behalf. And you're expecting an AI to really correlate well where you're aligned. I actually am working with roll.com right now. I want to just throw that out there. It's a good time. Hey, Grace from Canada. While I've got you guys here, let me just share roll.com. It's a really good one. I like it a lot. Go check it out. I'm actually doing advisory work with the founder, and we're working on getting to alignment, two-sided alignment, meaning from the job seeker's perspective and from the employer's perspective. We're trying to, create many, many signals in the profile on both sides to get to an alignment score high up the funnel so that we don't have to continue this volume play, right? There's no reason for people to be applying, to so many roles. It's like just throwing spaghetti against a wall to see what sticks. And on the flip side, there's really no reason or benefit for recruiters spending hours and hours going through thousands of pipelines. I right now I'm doing recruiting work for Insomnia Cookies. It's an awesome environment, but I have many hundreds and thousands of applicants in several of the roles that we're working on. There is no AI ranking and sorting, no AI ranking and sorting, no AI top of funnel friction. I'm the bot. Hi, I'm the bot. I'm the one sitting and going through resumes for hours on end, and that's okay. That's okay. Human evaluation at this stage is not a terrible thing. But the reality is, I'm not going to, be able to do a deep dive into every applicant the way AI actually could. So there is the opportunity, for AI to help us. But again, the goal is to get to alignment higher up the funnel and not be dependent on volume, right? If you can tell that you, based on not just your background and your resume, but many more data points, the type of work style you like, the type of balance you want in your life, the type of energy and the way people are acknowledged and evaluated and performance and all those things. You can have preferences and the company has their realities. What if we also could use those kind of subjective qualifiers higher up the funnel? It takes multiple conversations to get to that alignment traditionally, but this is what we should be trying to use AI for, right? So that again, I can talk to more people, have good, real, authentic human connection conversations if I'm not spending hours on end doing, very surface little screen level screens on a 2D resume that doesn't, and they all look very similar. Like nobody's essence is coming through in a resume anymore. I used to be able to kind of glean who you are a little from the energy of your resume. It's almost impossible to do that. So we kind of have no choice but to look for new ways to find those matches higher up. I saw a comment come in, so hang on. So Grace is asking, thank you for your question. What does an internal corporate recruiter look for on your LinkedIn before inviting you to their application process? They're looking for their target profile. So when we get a new role, when we kick off a new role, most good recruiters, now remember, nothing is absolute, okay? And the truth is there are bad recruiters out there and there are very new junior recruiters that out there that have not learned recruiting pre-tech. So bear that in mind, okay? But normally, most experienced good recruiters, when we get a new role, we get on a phone call or a video call with the hiring manager and we do a deep kickoff, or like that's our calibration point, okay? So at that point I usually ask for like, hey, show me a target profile, or hey, what are the, we go through the requirements lists, but requirements aren't like black and white check boxes, if you will, right? So everybody has varying degrees of those requirements. And so if somebody's very heavy in these three things, maybe it doesn't matter, they're light in these two things. I find that out in the kickoff call. The hiring manager says, okay, I can be flex on this requirement and then this requirement and this requirement, but they need deep, deep experience in this, this, and this. So when I go out to LinkedIn and I'm going to tap on your shoulder, Grace, it's going to be because your profile, because your background aligns to what the hiring manager is looking for, the kind of companies you've worked. There's a whole lot more nuance that we can't, like, doesn't make sense to list in a job description. I mean, there are ways to do it, but the reality is, and I've tested this over the last couple of weeks, and absolutely 100% people aren't reading the job descriptions in depth, right? So even if we did insert, like, we really prefer people from Series A to E fintech companies in New York, like it's because that's actually what what the hiring manager is looking for. But like we saying that in a job description is futile. It won't matter really. So that's kind of, I think, um, that's what we're looking for, is we're trying to get as close to the ideal target profile as possible. When applicants come in and apply directly, I'll tell you that the average voluminous pipeline right now kind of looks like a bell curve, okay? And maybe a little heavier on the not experienced side, but the majority of all applicants are close, right? Very few are perfect fits, and very few are like so far off the reservation it's not even close, right? Like just zero alignment at all. Like not nothing, like not tethered to any kind of reality or fit at all. So there's very few that are those edge cases, right, that are really really good and perfectly aligned, and those are the ones we call, those are the ones we're searching the whole pipeline for, right? And most people are a little not qualified, or not quite right, but most people fit in that bell, in that 80%, like not quite, but not far off. Like that's the majority of applicants, truly. They have some, but not all the requirements, right? So that's when we're actively going out to poach or source, if you will. We're definitely looking for the outlier, like 2% perfectly aligned. And we know there are no perfect people. That doesn't mean there isn't perfect alignment. There is such thing as perfect alignment. Most of the times when we have the hire, they're pretty perfectly aligned. That doesn't mean, like when I see job seekers come out railing on LinkedIn because there are no perfect job seekers, there are no perfect candidates. Like, no, we're not saying the human has to be perfect. We're saying their background perfectly aligns to the role. And yes, perfect exists. And no, it's not a unicorn or a purple squirrel. It's the people who have been in those environments, in those roles in prior. Like it, very simply, like it isn't egregious, nefarious, horrible, disrespectful, or any of that. It's just we know what we need. By the way, when the hiring manager evaluates what they need, and I see a lot of job seekers like judging the what they see as arbitrary requirements. So you're making a judgment about what we, who intimately are inside the company, know the problems, know what we're trying to solve. We know the existing team. We know the gaps on that team and where the weaknesses and strengths are. So like the it's a little arrogant to get out publicly and then say that hiring managers and recruiters have no idea what they're looking for. These requirements are arbitrary. Based on what, like, why would you assume that? We actually spend a lot of time talking about what we need. Hey, Kimberly, we spend a lot of time talking about what we need, what gaps we're trying to fill, what problems we need to solve, the areas on our team. So most often when an existing team is hiring another person or backfilling, the hiring manager, like 98% of the time, uses that opportunity to look at where are the gaps of weakness in our existing team. Let's hire somebody that's really strong in that area. They can be a little weaker over here because our existing team has strength there. Do you see? It's complementary. Every hire is complementary to those who exist already in the company and the needs of that hire. So again, like when I see people talking publicly, it's like they're comparing the job description in front of them to past roles they've had. So like in their mind, account executive looks like this. That's their pattern recognition. So when they see a job description that looks different from this, even in the same industry, it's they don't know what they're looking for, and you don't need that experience, and you don't need a degree, and you don't need 5 years of experience or whatever. Like, but also you have no idea. And that's just, I'm going to be like, straight transparent about that. There's just so much assumption being made. Also, people are listening to other people's public stories and then drawing connections to their just like, no. Here's the thing. Please hear this if nothing else. Clip this, okay? There are millions of different companies out here, and every one of them is hiring differently. Okay. So, like, there are trends and patterns in different industries amongst different size companies, different functions, but like everyone's hiring differently for their own unique needs that they are experts in, not us from the outside looking in with partial information and making assumptions. I'll leave that there, but I think that that should help somebody. That's got to help somebody. Okay. Somebody said, so requirements aren't black and white, question mark. In my world, we have requirements, must have absolutely 100%, and preferences, nice to have, important to have, would like to have, and mixing the two may get one in legal trouble. Your thoughts? Okay, so yes, there are requirements that are set, but also, and nice to haves, right? But also, they aren't weighted all the same. So I don't know who you are because you're a LinkedIn user, as far as I can see in the comments. I don't know who I'm talking to, but that's okay. I'm assuming you're a recruiter. I can kind of like, based on the words you're using, that you obviously probably are a recruiter. But like every requirement isn't, even if they're required, they aren't all as required, right? Like somebody can be lighter here if they're heavier here. We understand how that looks on the back end. Um, but job seekers don't. I also don't tend, let me throw this caveat out here. It sounds like you maybe work in a more regulatory environment. I have not spent a lot of time in very large corporations where there's a tremendous amount of compliance, regulatory, SLAs, rules. Yeah, I've worked in environments where I mean, like, there's nothing illegal about not hiring somebody that has 100% of the requirements. That's not illegal. What would be illegal is if somebody who did have 100% of the requirements didn't get hired and brought to someone's attention that somebody that didn't have 100% requirements got hired and there's a protected class scenario. That's pretty rare. In my 20, almost 8 years of experience, yes, some requirements are absolutely rigid and set, and some are slightly more malleable, and it depends on their background and experience, especially when you start getting into like leadership roles and really high impact roles. If you're doing a lot of volume, like entry level or like, kind of earlier career or like lower requirement type hiring, then yes, there's probably going to be a lot of that kind of, everyone has to meet those minimum requirements at least. But a lot of the requirements end up being nice to haves at the end of the day. Um, and also, the mix of nice to haves matters, right? So, like, it may be a nice to have that you come from a Series A to E fintech company in New York or whatever. Um, but, you know, there's a lot of varieties of or ways how that comes through, right? Um, there's a lot of nuance, and people who have been recruiting for a long time, in my experience, are pretty good at navigating all that nuance, right? And again, job descriptions are a representation, a screenshot of what we're trying to hire for. And we also learn through in the process, especially if it's like a new role. Say they're hiring a new role that they've never hired before. They think they know what requirements they're looking for, but sometimes they change after so like I'll bring the first slate of candidates and they meet all the requirements, right? Maybe some of the nice to haves. And after interviewing five, the hiring manager is like, yeah, I'm not, this isn't, I'm not getting the target profile I'm looking for, and then we go back and we recalibrate on those requirements. I play a very strategic role with the companies I recruit for. I'm not an order taker. I don't passively sit around and wait for um, hiring managers to give me lists of requirements and nice to haves. I am part of the process of identifying what are the right requirements based on the work they'll be doing, the weaknesses in the existing team, the problems that'll be solved, whatever. So hopefully that's helpful. Um, I hope that that adds a little more nuance. But yes, requirements are required, but again, they're not all weighted the same. Okay, that's my experience. Who else? More questions. This is a good topic, actually. Someone throw something out. I mean, I can keep talking forever. I could keep going on this topic as well. But I do think that everybody should go check out roll.com. I'd love to hear for the recruiters who are on. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Are these the right signals? I actually posted a poll. I wish I could somehow drop it in the comments, but I don't think I can. Maybe I can. Can I? I'll try. But I just posted a poll um, where I'm asking people who are reviewing applicants at top of funnel to go ahead and look at our. Um, let's see if it works if I post this in the comments. I don't. It didn't before, so I don't know. Oh, there you go. So in the comments is that link, and that's to the survey where you can look at. I actually can probably bring it up. Um, I wasn't prepared to do that, but why not? It's not like there's a ton of people asking questions, might as well. But let me see how I can bring up a screenshot or share something. Can I share something? Let's see. Music, video clips, overlay. No. Logo. I don't know. I don't know. I honestly. Oh, wait. Present. I can present. Wait. Let me not share like half my screen. Let me not do that. All right. Let's see if this works. Thanks for hanging with me because now I'm really just simply curious. I'm scared. I'm sharing the screen, but let's see what happens. All right. I think I got it. Wow. All right. Hopefully you guys can see that. Can you see that? I can't see your comments, so I don't know if you can see it. But hopefully you can. If you can, this is what the verified profile on roll.com will look like. These are some of the different signals. It's owned by and portable by the actual job seeker. Some of the things we're verifying is that they're human, hello, where they live, because that often is not honest or real when you're looking at people top of funnel. Um, you know, these different criteria are verified, their work history, we can verify in advance. Um, Work style. This obviously is self-reported preferences here. Like they enjoy a fast pace, or they enjoy very structured, or they enjoy, high work-life balance, or they prefer a hustle environment of 996 or whatever that crazy startup thing is, or whatever, right? So this is where kind of we can understand more about people higher up the funnel. And this alignment score in the middle here, role alignment, is based on two-sided information. So not just what the job seeker is saying and what they've done and what they're looking for and their experience and their tool usage and all these things, but also what the company is looking for and their reality around work style and culture and how people are evaluated and what the balance is actually like. It's fine if everyone is transparent. We can get to a world where volume isn't required because there's a lid for every pot, right? when I see these volume plays, right? It to me it's the early iteration of eventually 100% of everyone being in a database and all roles being in a database and us getting computer matched to jobs and being assigned to different work. And that's a strange future thing to consider, okay? But that to me is like that the only benefit of using AI, again, and seeking the volume on both sides is everyone is findable and every role is also findable and every person is matchable. Like, do we really want that? Do we really want a system where, there's one central staffing agency and like we just get assigned to different roles and can accept them or decline them, but like there's no actual choosing or agency in the process? I think it's terrible for both sides. So instead of continuing the race to the bottom of hell, which is what the volume play actually is, everyone using AI to avoid, having to look at actual signals and real alignment, I say, hey, let's pull ourselves back up to the top. Let's look at a platform where there's more equity, like the power dynamic is a little more balanced, right? There's company profiles, there's people profiles, there's a dish far more signals and depth than what we have in a JD and a resume, especially when it's an AI generated job description and an AI generated resume. I'm going to stop sharing, but hopefully everyone has seen it. And I'd love opinions on it. Um, Let me go back to comments. Hopefully, you guys are telling me if you. Hey, Laura, my buddy is here. Anyway, so Kimberly is asking, can you talk about hiring managers needing candidates now and balancing the needs across a portfolio? I mean, I don't know that I've ever worked for hiring managers that don't need to hire yesterday. Are you talking about the fact that everyone does everything reactively and that nobody's like, being proactive about where will my team be in the next 30 days, 90 days? What should I be thinking about in advance? If that's what you're talking about, like reactive, pants on fire, urgent, I need people, um, and balancing those needs across lots of different roles or lots of different clients, if that's what you're talking about, tell me. Let me know, Kimberly. Laura knows. Laura has like 5 different bots working on her behalf, doing various things. Sorry, Laura, I just totally outed you on screen, but I'm sure it's something that you're proud of. And it certainly shows your level of effectiveness and efficiency. And of course, I know that she's very much like, and human contact and screening is a human thing. So she's got AI doing other things so that she's more freed up to talk to people and to do the high value, kind of connecting and screening things and interviewing. But yeah, so yeah, exactly. They always think like their asses are on fire from my personal experience. And like one of my favorite sayings is like, you can't use it 100% of the time because then, they won't take you seriously. But hey, this is the HR, not the ER. Like, no one's dying. It's okay. We'll get the hire, right? And also, so I flip, Kimberly, here's an actual answer for you. Besides like using tools to better manage time and things like that, it's also the approach back to the hiring manager. So I use their own urgency as leverage to get what I need out of them. Okay. So another common aspect of hiring managers is that they don't share deeply unless you prod for them to, like the why is that requirement a requirement? Those are not things that they show up to tell you, right? Because half the time it's like their own pattern recognition, their own bias. This is what it looked like in the last place I came from, or the last successful person I hired had a background like this. So, of course, I assume it's the background, not the individual, which is like recruiting 101, we have to remind them that rarely is the pattern recognition of someone's profile the thing that makes them successful, right? Like, that's not what people are successful because of their mindset. If you want the truth, the differentiator between people who are super successful always and people who struggle is typically mindset. No, I know there's all kinds of edge case outlier scenarios, like, but I don't spend a lot of time debating edge cases, because why? Right? That to me is like, okay, so this isn't a real conversation to reveal real truth and information. Um, yeah. So that's kind of how I see it. So I use that leverage. Like, okay, well, you have to give me more. You can't say you want to hire yesterday, and then when I'm trying to like prod and calibrate and deeply understand what you're really looking for, right? I'm asking you the hard questions. Like, you can't blow me off, because now I'm going to throw your urgency right back at you. Like, yeah, okay, well, the less I know, the longer it'll take. And, you hold the key. Listen, I'm not a passive recruiter slash HR person out here. I know that there are some, and I'm sad for those folks, because it must be really hard to do this job if you're not assertive, if you aren't confident enough to insert your strategic prowess into the conversation. I've been doing this for almost 28 years. I'm an expert in hiring for all intents and purposes. And I make sure that I approach all hiring leaders that way, no matter how long they've been hiring. Okay. So it's always a collaborative strategic partnership in my world. If they treat me like a admin, order taker, box checker, I don't need all this information, just use this profile and match it. Uh, you know, I'm going to push back, and they're not going to get what they want. So, and it very rarely actually works against me. This is how I establish respect. The hardest thing for a new recruiter is to establish respect with hiring leaders. The more experience you get over time, the more successful things you've done, the more companies you've helped scale, the more confidence you end up having. But early, you really have to establish that respect, and it does come from actual confidence. It's hard to push back and be assertive and establish respect if you don't feel, you know, like an expert in what you're doing. And that's tough. I remember it's tough. I always had moxie. I've always been who I am. Like, energetically, I showed up like I knew what I was doing always, because effectively I kind of did. I was really good at recruiting from the beginning, and I don't think, I don't know that everyone's naturally great at it, but I happen to be, right? And I really liked it. I think it's because I love connecting with people. My favorite part of early recruiting, and probably why I did well at it, was because I was super interested and curious in learning all these different roles and what everyone does, right? So like, in a new search for a role I have never worked on before, I ask a boatload of questions. Like, the candidates, the applicants taught me what they do. That would be tougher in this market. I could be honest. Like, if I were starting out now, I don't know that I would love it like I did. But I have very open conversations with people, and I'm genuinely interested in what they do. I'll tell you something: when you approach people with genuine interest about them and what they do and what they like and what matters to them, they'll share a lot. Generally, right? Like, people aren't going to be bothered to share all that if you're just asking because, like, you're on a checklist and you're checking boxes for a hiring manager because you're like a clerical operator of tactical minutia. Like, that's not the best use of a recruiter, in my perspective. That's my opinion. Yeah, Laura's like me. She said she's always been an assertive pain in the ass. But, like, that's what they need. If they knew what they were doing, they probably, like, A recruiter is like a concierge of the hiring process to the candidates, to the hiring manager, to everyone. So we have to really know what's going on and also be able to creatively influence everyone in the conversation so that you end up with positive outcomes, a hire, but also candidates who don't hate you when you reject them. Like, there's a dignified way to manage that whole process. Ghosting, once you're past the screening stage and on to like interviewing and like people are genuinely in the process, everybody gets closure. Everybody should get an email or phone call, a personal something. There's no, now we get to ghost somebody who's jumped through our fiery hoops. That's what a crappy mentality. And I don't believe that that's what recruiting leaders and recruiters are actually saying. I think the truth is people are low bandwidth right now. I think people are very stretched thin, dealing with volumes, huge volume pipelines of applicants. And it's hard to manage all of it. I'm not going to lie. It's actually, even with 28 years of experience, managing volume is really hard. So I also bear with people. I've never in 28 years heard of a company that's like, yes, I want to be disrespect. I want to be publicly and openly disrespectful to candidates, to job seekers. Let's build a strategy around that. But when I hear people's comments on LinkedIn, it sort of comes from the lens of that belief. Now, I love transparency. And I will say, I'll be the first one to say, in the absence of clear information and transparency, people have every right to make up whatever the hell they want about what's going on in the black box. Yes, absolutely. If I ever implemented any of these AI frictions or these things in the process, or I wanted people to do an assessment or an assignment, I would have no problem getting myself on video and deeply explaining what we're doing, why we're using it, how we're using it, and why it's, you know, everyone's best interest and blah, blah, blah. And it's not that we don't care, we don't want to talk to people. It's that which of the 2,000 applicants do we choose to talk to? Because we can't talk to all of them. That's the premise. So, okay, LinkedIn user is back and said, "Hi, Lori. Is there any reason why people go through the whole interview process? You had a great interview in every round. Each person tells you that you are perfect for the job, and they don't even bother to call you to say you didn't get a job. They send you a rejection letter." Yes, because a lot of times, bye, Kimberly. A lot of times, LinkedIn user, we don't actually have a decision made until the end. If, okay, this is like the perfect numbers of a healthy pipeline and interview process, okay? So we start with 1,000 applicants. Ouch. And we get that down, whatever, using, we're not going to talk about how we get down to, so say we get to 20, okay? Ideally, I want to talk to 20 people that look, like a close fit on paper, okay? And of the 20, I'm excited if I get to five, six, candidates to move into the hiring manager process. And then those five and six interview with the hiring manager, and maybe they whittle down to four, their top four. Now those four go to the next step. Say the next step is you meet with a cross-functional leader from another team that works with this team a lot, and maybe a peer, and maybe the hiring manager and somebody else on the team or whatever. So maybe a panel that at this point, usually there's some sort of, you're meeting with multiple people or you're doing an activity or assignment or a presentation or whatever. So four people went into that process. Probably out of that process, we'll eliminate another two. And now two are going to the final stage. So, yes, there's a reason why you go all the way through. And even if you're not the one who gets hired, you still have to go through the process to even have the. If you don't go through the process, LinkedIn user, you definitely won't be selected for the hire. It's like Wayne Gretzky said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Going through the interview process is you shooting your shot. It is a requirement to get to the hire. You can opt out. I fully encourage people to have, their own set of boundaries and things that are their own red flags, but like be a critical thinker about what that is. Just because it's a long interview process by itself, that's not a signal of anything. Actually, it's a signal of a high bar interview process where they care a lot about who they hire. Usually, high bar recruiting processes have lower attrition on the other end. If I hire if I have a very low bar hiring process and I'm making a lot of hires, it's probably hire fast, fire fast, right? When people hire fast, they tend to fire fast. I don't think that's a great strategy. It's what if we put rigor in our hiring process and then we also put rigor in before we part ways with somebody, right? We're much less likely to have a lower alignment post hire. Does this make sense to anybody? Do I sound nuts? Somebody give me some feedback. You're Dave. I am Dave. That is not the issue. Okay, what's the issue? What's the issue? I can only respond to what you tell me. What you told me is that, is there any reason why people go through the whole interview process, is what you asked. Um, you had a great interview yeah, like if you make it to the final, it doesn't mean that there was anything wrong with you or that you weren't hireable. It means they chose to hire somebody else who also was valuable and hireable. I mean, there's always going to be one. So whenever there's one job, 99.9% of all applicants will end up rejected. That's math, not ethics. And if you want to expand, Dave, I can expand too. Like, this is what I love to do. In fact, I actually prefer when people challenge me because, I don't know, it inspires an even deeper answer and more context and more nuance, and I enjoy it. I'm a natural contrarian, so yeah, it's fun for me. In fact, that's why I come do this every week for free. Like nobody's paying me, nobody's sponsoring this. I actually pay for StreamYard. I have the buy me a coffee, but like I don't make money doing this at all. I spend money so that I can show up and help people understand the parts of the hiring process that are less transparent and more hidden from them. That's why I do this. So like, I'm not here to rain on anyone's parade. I'm here to give you enough information so you can more effectively navigate a very challenging job market. Like that's why I'm here, Dave, is because I want to help people. So if you share more, I can share more. The best candidate is not always the one who is hired. That's correct. What would what does that mean? So if in order for us to evaluate that we hired the best person, we would have to entertain every single, like 100% of all talent in that space. We never will. That's not the goal. And we want a great hire. So the word best, like we hire the best of all the people we talk to from our perspective. That's the whole point. We have multiple conversations to collect information so that we can make the best possible hire. But there's never been a perfect science in hiring. There's never like a formula where we can objectively and with data validate that we're hiring the best person, and never has been. We hire the best person we have access to hiring. That's subjective based on what we know about the role and what we're looking for. So, what else? But yeah, like I actually really I think one of my favorite things to discuss or to add nuance to is the idea that every company is trying to hire the absolute best possible person for the role. I mean, yeah, and it's not a perfect science. There's no way to actually validate that. We'd again have to consider everyone to do that. That would be the world where there's a database. 100% of us are sitting in and 100% of people who want a job are sitting in a database. and 100% of the roles being hired are sitting in a database, and AI is like matching everybody and spitting out opportunities to people. But like, that would be a terrible low agency reality. Like, I just don't think that gets us where we want to go. I think the other direction is the right way to go. Everyone being high agency in the process, everyone being able to, approach the matching from what matters to them. Not just what matters to the employer, but also what matters to you as a job seeker, right? It's like I say this all the time. It's like dating. You wouldn't show up to every first date with 10 new people trying to be whatever it is they're looking for. You wouldn't show up with the energy of, let me bend myself into a pretzel so that I can be what you're looking for. That's nuts, because that assumes you don't have your own criterion that you're looking for that matters. Okay. This is the problem with kind of the energy dynamic imbalance in hiring. The best candidates honestly show up like with the same energy as the company. I have needs, I have things that matter to me. I'm clear and can articulate what that is and what those are. And if they align, great. If they don't, I'm happy to nope out of the process right now. Those are the best, usually the best candidates have a sense of what matters to them. They assert themselves in a way um, that's useful when we hire, right? We like people who are very self-aware, who have a clear understanding of where they fit in the world. I get how hard that is if you are actually like in a position where you've been out of work for a while and you are desperate to find a job. I totally understand how that feeling can disrupt the assertiveness and confidence you show up with. That is the best use case for talking to a career coach. I do far more pro bono coaching than paid coaching, because I want to help people, because I know how hard this is, because I know the rules of the game are changing and everyone's trying to figure out how to play the new game. Okay? The best use case for leveraging coaching, and there's a lot of pro bono coaching out here, is when you're you're feeling defeated and can no longer show up like, an assertive, confident candidate. That's when you talk to somebody, because it's super hard to get out of that headspace alone. And I'm happy to always jump on with anybody who needs it, or, in my tiny pieces of availability as I'm going through thousands of applicants for jobs. So, anyway, this was an awesome session. I am so happy that everybody showed up, who showed up, and some of my favorite recruiters showed up, and I love it. Bye, LG. I adore you, and I'm going to be logging off anyway because we're at the end, but feel free. Please don't forget to go check out roll.com. And then, if you want to buy me a coffee, that's also appreciated. But I will absolutely see you next Wednesday. Same time, same place. Bye bye.